Hello and welcome back to my house. So I'm still working on remodeling the basement, and my house, when it was originally built, the entry to the basement was a door. Now, many owners ago, they removed that door and it's just an entryway now into the basement. However, it's just this big eyesore because you still see the casing of where a door should be. So it can't be too hard to take it out and put in a new door casing, right? All right, so first step, you want to use a X-Acto knife, any sort of knife like this, just to cut that caulking away from your wall. If you don't, you're going to have areas that it pulls off that drywall. Now, I did have a few areas like that, even though I did use this knife. So just watch that, because then your repairs will be less work in the end. Then you just want to grab your crowbar and get to work ripping out that area that you've been wanting to take out for so long. There's something just so satisfying about pulling it out. So honestly, the hardest part of this project was deciding on a frame style for around the casing. Now, I went on Pinterest and just online looking for all the different styles. There's so many different styles out there for you to choose from. In the end, I just went with one that was pretty basic, but a classy look. And it's just 45s at the tops. The other thing to consider is your material choice. So there's so many different choices to go from out there. There's MDF, there's a fiber board, there's real wood. I'm sure there's many others. Now, my go-to is always real wood. So I'm using real wood, and I paid a little extra money to get it pre-primed just to save me a step. I once again brought my sander into the house just to smooth out everything so that my boards will fit flush against the walls, the sides, and the top. And I bring my sander again, just like before, because it cuts down on the dust that is left in my house and that I breathe in while using it. So I couldn't find wood that was in the exact width that I needed for my frame. But no problem, I just took it out to the shop and I just ripped it down on the table saw. Then using the miter saw, I cut it to length. Now, just a fun fact for you here, miter saws are not supposed to smoke like that. This is actually because my blade is getting very dull and needs to be replaced. One of the hardest parts of any casing or door frame is getting it all level. So you have to think about using a level to keep the top level, as well as you want both of your sides to be level. You also want to make sure to use a tape measure because you want your top and your bottom of your door to be the same length. So for this, you're going to want a level and some shims. For the inside casing, I put in the top board first, then the two side boards. And then I used my nailer and 1.5-inch nails to hold everything in place. And the scope creep begins. Do you guys have this on your project? You start off with one small thing you're gonna do, and by the end you are redoing the whole room. So again, for this trim, I decided to go with the basic look that's 45s on the top corners. Seems easy enough. You just head out to your shop and cut 45s on the miter saw. So if your saw is anything like mine, a 45 doesn't necessarily mean that it's a true 45. I need to actually play around with it and make sure that it's correct. So to do this, I'm just going to grab a piece of scrap wood and I'm going to cut what I believe is a 45 on my saw. Then I just take it over to my 90-degree angle and see if it lines up. This one does not. So I'm just going to make a mark on the board so I know which way I need to move my saw blade. And then I just continue to tweak it until it makes a perfect 90-degree angle. Now I left a 1/4 inch reveal on the door frame when I put up the trim, so that when you look at it from the sides or the front, you will just see that small bit of reveal around the edges. For all of my drywall repairs, I just used some spackle and went over them, let it dry, and you're good to go. And then I used some plastic wood on any of my nail holes and also areas where wood came together and there was a bit of a seam, just to seal that seam so that there wasn't a crack showing where the two came together. Okay, I have the best new product to share. This may be a really old product and maybe I just didn't know about it. Always when caulking walls, I use something like this and the big awkward metal thing contraption that comes with it. They have this new caulk in this container here, so easy to use. Just pull off the lid here and you can see I've already cut it. So it comes uncut, but I cut it. And it's so easy. You just use some painter's tape, is what I use to get just the perfect lines. And then you just come along with this right along where you need to be, pushing slightly on here so that it'll come out the edge. You're right there, so it's just so easy to do. Then I just take my finger and I run it along there just to make a smooth edge and to remove any excess. So this is a new product. If you haven't used it, you've got to try it. It works so slick and the cleanup is minimal. You don't have any awkward metal tools to use. For my last video, I gave you my long-winded spiel on paint, so I'm going to keep it nice and sweet here. So on this project, I just used a primer on everything. Then I painted up the walls and the trim. And it's good to go. So I know this may not seem like much to you guys, but this really makes all the difference in the world, because this is where people enter this room and exit this room. And now they aren't left with seeing something that looks like a remodel that wasn't finished. It was easy enough to do. Any of you guys can do it. And again, the nice thing about this is if it isn't completely perfect, there isn't a door hanging in there. So if you have an area like this, it's definitely something to start with and give it a try. And here we are with the finished door frame. I always like to end with something fun for you guys. So let me think what we can do here. All right, I got it. I'm gonna be cheesy and I'm gonna recreate a movie for you guys, and you have to guess what movie it is in the description.
Truth. Hey, listen, Rosita. I was only being friendly. You know, I didn't mean,
Your towel, Signor Meek.
Oh.